Hello, everybody. I'm just answering questions that people had this morning in Zoom. So it's a little easier for you guys from home. One of the questions was, I don't have a directional lamp like a desk lamp. What can I do to get more contrast on my piece? The one thing you can do is take a standard lamp. So here I have one of my bedroom lamps. And what I'm going to do is take out the light bulb for a minute, set it down. Hopefully it doesn't roll off. And take off the lampshade. Takes a minute. Okay, lampshade is off. Put it over to the side so it doesn't get wrecked. And then I'm going to put the light bulb back in. And what that does, because the lampshade is going to diffuse the light, so diffusing meaning it can go anywhere. This should give you direction. I'm going to plug it in. I'm going to turn off the light that I have. Just unplug that. You're going to be in the dark for a second. Okay, I'm going to turn the light on. I'm going to flip you around. This is not our fabric because it fell again, but I just put it up as an example. So you can see, like, I could set it somewhere. Mine's pretty high. I don't really have a table right now that'll fit that. But you can actually take it and put it wherever it works the best for you. So if you don't necessarily have a directional light, like I've been using this, you can simply use that. Okay, so I'm going to put you back up on the drawing. I'm going to unplug this. Now I'm blind. Hope that doesn't break while I'm demoing. Because I break things and my cat breaks things. All right. So we had a few really great questions, and I'm going to show them to you. How to do it. So because my still life keeps falling down, I actually have photos of both. I took from the video. It's not the best solution, but right now it's better than nothing. So, sorry, I was getting those put up. And I'm going to bring you over here to the striped knot. There was a really good question about how do you deal with tiny folds. So in here, I've got really tiny folds. And the answer to that is with tiny tools. Okay. So I have my blending stump. I've got my tiny eraser. I still have my bigger eraser, my kneaded eraser, and a smaller piece of charcoal. Okay. So because it's already drawn in, and really where you're going to get a lot of these tiny folds are in areas like here where the fabric is compressed because it's coming out of the knot. Excuse me. I'm actually going to come through and do a little erasing first. Pull out the highlights. If I'm looking, again, the light's coming from over here, so it's brighter on the top of the curve. Again, I just want to make sure that doesn't get too stripey. So I'm kind of trying to do a little roundness in here. I'm going to hit that up with a tiny eraser. It's a lot easier to do this stuff when you have little tools. And again, if you don't have a little eraser like this, you can always just cut your white eraser. So hopefully that is starting to show up. I definitely have a bit of a harder highlight on the edge here because you're getting kind of like a top and a side to the curve. It's going to feel a little bit striped for a few minutes. And I'm looking, this one is a little bit more triangular in terms of the bright highlight. And then it fades off kind of into the side. So when you're going in there with charcoal to get in my darker ones, it's very hard to get in there if you don't have a charcoal pencil. I'll do both, charcoal pencil and not. So I'm going to rub the charcoal on here and then rub it in with the blending stump. This is actually quite dark because it's in the darker part of the knot. This isn't getting quite what I want it to do, so I'm just gonna do a little wiggle. You can actually see I'm bringing in a little bit of the charcoal into the light. So sometimes it just doesn't get quite as dark on the blending stump as I wish it would. And you can see that I'm getting in there on the little stripes. The one thing I kind of did forget is some of the details here. I don't know how I missed that. Stuff happens. Well, I'll redraw some of it later. And then I come in and again I start doing the same thing over here. Bringing that charcoal in. Sorry about that, it's the dump truck. Gotta keep these demos interesting, right? And you just start playing back and forth. I can actually come in here a little bit too. My blending stump is a little bit dirtier. Just darken up the edge of that curve. Also, someone asked about wrinkles, okay? Usually I go through and get everything in and then I start fussing with wrinkles, but because this is pretty resolved, I'm gonna show you here. So if I'm looking at my fabric, I can definitely see that there's a wrinkle here, there's a wrinkle here. In the last video, and I'll zoom in for you, I started to deal with that, but now if I wanna go a little bit further, it really is just playing with values, whereas I'm coming in. Again, using my blending stump, you can give something that has more of an edge without a harder line. And again, don't feel like you have to blend too much. Like maybe there's a little, I'm going to exaggerate here, maybe there's a tiny little like kind of a pucker with a fold. You can see I created almost like a little triangle in there. And then you can come through, play with that eraser a bit. Pull out contrast. This edge should be even brighter. And again, notice I'm not going to let that blend too much. So it gets a little bit more gestural, leaves a little bit more of the mark. I'm even going to pull out some of the value here. So when I say gesture, it's expressivity and movement. Actually showing really nicely here. Obviously, because this goes into the black, it's going to be darker. You can even come in a little bit here. So as before, when we were blending a ton, that's because our bottles and boxes, they didn't have much particular value to them. Or not, excuse me, particular texture. So we didn't have to worry quite so much. These do. So we can really start to have some fun with the textures that are in here. Again, sometimes it's a quick swipe. And as you step back, it'll start to look more textured and more like a wrinkle, a soft fold. If you have fabric that's super duper wrinkly, you may just want to iron it first before you draw it. Like if there's tiny crinkles everywhere, that can get really difficult. One thing I did want to show you, let me just get it. Some of you guys were having trouble with the drawing itself being too light. You were having trouble seeing, so I'm going to zoom out for a second. Notice again here that my drawing is pretty light, but I can understand that maybe that's hard for you to see. So you can get a Vine charcoal. It is listed in your materials. It's not one of my favorite mediums to use because it does wipe away really quickly. This is not Vine, but it's very close. It's called Nitram. The same idea. But what you can do with that is instead draw in your lines. Again, not compressed charcoal, but it wipes right away, right? You can see that it goes right away. So we don't do a ton of building with it, but if you wanted to, if this is easier for you to see, you could use a Vine charcoal, get your folds, you know, start finding your shapes in here and pulling out that work. I'm fine with either. Just know that the minute you put your hand on here to rest it, that line's going to be gone. Okay. Oh, this was a good question. I think was Marcus's because he's got really tiny lines on his drawing. So I'm actually going to, well, to move you over, I have a very precarious setup here. Let's see. Ah, sorry guys. Told you. Real life. Not refilming it. I'm just gonna show you the technique here. I don't actually have tiny lines on my fabric. But what I'm gonna do is I'm going to put charcoal on my blending stump. And I can just, let's say I had a line that came in here that was really little. Right? And you don't want to make it super hard to begin with, because again, we know that these lines, they change with the value, so it'll get darker in the darker areas, lighter in the lighter areas. There we go. So I'm getting darker in the darker areas, lighter in the lighter areas. So if you have a tiny line, like a pinstripe, this is how you would do it. You just have to make sure that you put the right amount of charcoal on. The other way that you can do it, and I can grab one here, is I have a charcoal pencil. Let's see. Where are my charcoal pencils? I don't know if I have one that's sharpened enough, but I'm not gonna fuss around looking for a sharpener. This will work. So I have a charcoal pencil. You could also come in and do one of these, right? Noodle, really? She's playing in her toy. I actually think that this line looks better because I would still come back and hit up the charcoal pencil line with a blended stump. But whatever you have is all right. And actually, as I play with values, I would probably come back and lighten that up a bit. Hit it back in. So either works quite good for small lines. All right. And I will actually this is what I'll show you guys later because our project will be 3 to 4 days. So you're going to have plenty of time. Like you'll be able to eventually come in with a pencil. This is a nice, really soft charcoal pencil and really get darker values, sharper lines where you need them, things like that. Okay, so yeah, I had to show you small lines, Vine charcoal, lamp without a shade, wrinkles, and tiny folds. And I think I did that. So you can email me if you have any other demos that you need to see between classes, or if you need me to take a look at your drawing or your setup. Okay, folks? I hope that helps. I will talk to you soon. Bye.